Okay, welcome back then. Late December 1856, where we left off. And uncharacteristically, I'm going to throw caution to the wind and make a play for Vienna for a few reasons. One, I mean, don't get me wrong, I kind of yearn for peace, really. You know, this is the second war in less than a decade, against a major power. But I think securing peace long term, at least against Austria, is going to be based on hobbling Austria, really seriously hobbling them. And I think we stand a much better chance of doing that by taking Vienna, the capital, and destroying it. Destroying the industrial plant there, destroying their Imperial military college, destroying their ammunition, their munitions works and so on, and doing much the same also in Hungary. And getting tough concessions from them. Best case scenario, if we force them to make Hungary independent, for example, then that would sort of end Austria as a great power, at least a first-rate great power, I think. I think they'd be very reluctant, even with the loss of Vienna, to accept that, but we could get really, really good economic concessions, get them to pay significant amounts of money over a significant period of time. So it's actually a practical thing. Don't get me wrong, the idea of being able to take Vienna and achieving that thing which had always evaded the Ottomans would be excellent, would be really, really good, and it's something, that's certainly part of the motive. But if it was that alone, I probably wouldn't do it, because, yeah, I mean, I like to play the games sort of a little bit kind of in character, and the Ottomans don't have any territorial claims on the Austrians, and the reason for that is the territorial claims that you have in this game, they really reflect the territorial claims or the areas of interest of the ruling class of that faction. And by the 1850s, the Ottomans were not looking to expand their European empire. In fact, the European provinces they had were kind of a bit of a running sore, really. These European provinces are not metropole provinces. They're not really colonies, but they function sort of like colonies. These are kind of territorial acquisitions that almost reflect a kind of cryostasis from the early modern period. The Ottomans just occupy these areas, really. And enlarging this, by now, the ruling house is looking to modernize, industrialize the empire, and really kind of firm up its domestic position. The only areas, really, for kind of expansion that the Ottoman ruling class has at this time, if we go to our colonial ministry, is really the interior, is the kind of the Arabian Peninsula. These are the areas that we can see we get kind of prestige bonuses. These are high yield prestige bonus areas. That doesn't mean to say that we can't look at maybe possibly colonizing other areas, which would result in a short-term prestige loss, but this could convert into a gain long-term on the basis of kind of consolidating another kind of colonial territory. But in any case, none of these regions include territories in southern Europe. Basically, the Ottoman ruling class is sort of, the aristocracy, the nouveau kind of bourgeois. They're looking for us to kind of consolidate the interior, consolidate the Arabian Peninsula, explore the terra incognita. And they would probably look the other way if we looked elsewhere long term, maybe the Horn of Africa, something like this, and we can get into kind of a colonial competition with some European powers a little bit later in places like Tanganyika and so on and so forth. But yeah, so they don't have any territorial claims in Europe at all, and the territories that they hold, are probably more trouble than they're worth in a lot of ways. But they're held for prestige reasons. We would receive a huge amount of prestige, of course, for taking Vienna, and we would, this would result in a huge national morale boost. It would result in Austrian national morale tanking completely, which, again, national morale is not this kind of amorphous, abstract thing. It affects the kind of the competency, the kind of combat effectiveness of our units. The morale of our units is much more effective. I would suspect probably dampens revolt risks and things like this, increases productivity. There's a whole kind of host of things that come with a really high national morale. And if we can end the war with a national morale that far exceeds 100, of course national morale will gradually level out. If we ended the war now at 83, it would gradually climb to 100. If we ended the war at 150, on the basis of taking Vienna, it would gradually decline and then, level out at around 100. But ending the war with a high national morale would be a really, really good, big boon for us. So to that end, we're going to set ourselves. It's late December now. We're about to kind of, pass the new year. into January 1857. I think let's give ourselves till May. So it gives us basically the rest of the winter and spring, really. And hopefully that would offer us kind of some clement weather to be able to really... I mean, if we're on the verge of taking Vienna come May, you know, maybe we'll give ourselves another month or something like that. But we don't want to keep lurching from month to month, chasing this thing which never comes. And of course, the real danger here is not just the fact that we might have a sudden reversal in the field. For example, looking in more detail at this stack in the east, that is indeed Radetzky's army, and Radetzky is a formidable commander. He's a very elderly kind of man by this time, but is a world famous commander, and he is in command of, judging by the number of crosses, this is a fully fledged Austrian army in Sombor. Yeah, I thought the commander was Bachka. That's actually the name of the region. That's presumably the localized name of the region. But anyway, so Radetzky with an Austrian army has appeared on the right flank. Short term, then, the plan is we need to retake back Slavonian, which fell as we began constructing a fortress. We didn't have any kind of time to get any kind of like garrison into this fortress, so we need to assault the fortress immediately and set a position up on the kind of western bank of the Danube. Simultaneous to that, we're going to deposit one army corps from Abdul Karim Nadir's force, hold that army corps. We're going to set to a conservative attack. We're going to hold that army corps on the west bank of the Danube in Hungary, and Abdul Karim Nadir is going to shadow Omar Pasha's move into Sava by moving into the eastern part of Budapest and to clear East Hungary. We've set him to an assault posture. He's going to engage the army corps there and clear the town. It's not fortified, so it should be doable. Now, if this corps puts up a serious fight, it can draw support possibly from Radetzky. But in turn, Abdul Karim Nadir should be able to draw support from Omar Pasha, who will be in an adjacent territory. So then it's going to take him 4 days. It's going to take Omar Pasha 5. Hopefully that's cutting it fine. But that should be enough for Omar Pasha to bring his kind of his skills to bear in any kind of big engagement against Radetzky. We'll see what Radetzky does anyway. He may make his own move. He may be looking to move into kind of Sava. So that's going to be the plan. Initially, instead of moving north, we want to secure the right flank, and it's going to involve gauging Radetzky and giving him a bloody nose. We want to try and hold Western Hungary. And now, if this corps is engaged, same applies. It can draw on Omar Pasha and it can draw on Abdul Karim Nadir. And Omar Pasha, as the senior commander in theatre, will lead the defence in any of these territories, basically. So that's a good kind of force configuration that we've got set up that plays to our advantages, which is a first-rate general. And we're going to need that because Radetzky is also a first-rate general. So that's the plan as we pass turn. Essentially, we've got a commander, Selim Pasha, obviously moving north. He's going to take up position with the reserve army corps really from Sarajevo, really as a screening force in Zagreb. There doesn't appear to be anything north of Zagreb. Once we kind of clear Fiume, and Hussein Avni can then push up into Istria and besiege Istria, subject to clearing the force that's there, of course. Then we'll give Selim Pasha and the Reserve Army Corps a little bit of flexibility then to maybe move up into Steinmark, although the danger there is that will draw a lot of attention from Vienna, so we might even leave Steinmark until the last moment. So that's going to be the plan. We're going to begin a little bit of a limited campaign now of economic destruction, which is going to set a precedent, let them know what we bring, etc. So the first things that we're going to begin destroying are 2 fishing ports on the Dalmatian coast. And if we can, we can't destroy the harbour. That's a shame. Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to do the same in Cattaro. And we'll investigate what the kind of prestige loss is for that, to give us some kind of gauge, really, for how much prestige we might lose on the basis of destroying a couple of agricultural enterprises. So that's going to basically destroy the economy. Now, we're not going to keep these territories. They'll go back to Austria once we revert to peace anyway. But that's going to be the first kind of experimental thing. I think in terms of the Austrian peace deal, I think we'll just ignore it. I don't think we'll even reply to it. We're just going to ignore it for now. Maybe they'll up their kind of, up their sort of offer. Their offer as it stands is 156 over 1 year. So yeah, we'll just pretend, we'll just ignore them. We don't have anything to say to that. So Hussein Avdi's going to try and clear out the rest of Fiume and capture the region. Properly capture the region, I mean actually militarily consolidate control over the region. There is, of course, a residual Austrian force in place, the remnants of the 15th Army. And Hussein Avdi's force is in rough shape. It's disorganized. It took some really heavy losses. I mean, a lot of these army corps really are, they're not much larger than a division in their current state. I mean, that's a division, as is that. And these army corps are not much larger, so they lost a lot of elements. And they'll have to gradually be reconstituted. So we've got a supply train. That force is heading back to Sarajevo. We were actually attempting to cross that from Sarajevo to Abdul Karim, but it didn't make it. It got stopped on the Sava, of course, when Slavonian fell to the Austrians. So this is just a scouting force that's here at the moment, but we'll sort of keep a careful eye on that. The plan is to destroy that scouting force, and we're going to assault the town. That's pretty much it. That's the military moves. We've got a cavalry division being built. This is Osman, a replacement for Osman Pasha's army. We're also going to build a couple of really small forces, brigades. The purpose of these brigades is we're going to kind of land them on the Dalmatian coastline and try and help us consolidate areas that we control. So, for example, Slavonian will move a brigade into the fortress of Slavonian and this sort of thing. So, let's have a look. We'll put an infantry brigade, I suppose, also at Smyrna. And a light cavalry brigade. That'll do. That's kind of all we can build anyway. In fact, that might be a little bit ambitious, so let's go with the cavalry brigade. I didn't realise we were at the end of a state revenue run, so okay, just an infantry brigade for the time being then. That's it militarily. I'm going to check our assets balance. I have exports set, as I have imports set also. Breaking even on iron based on 8 imports, 12 imports for coal, but it should reduce it to 18.9. But we've had a small amount of coal expenditure, so that should be okay. Nothing to worry about. Assets balance looks decent. Yeah, domestic demand is met based on significant exports if they shift, which they probably won't. Fine, that's all good. We're just going to quickly check the kind of the Middle East then, to the Mesopotamia. So we've got the Baghdad division set to offensive, and we've got the Q8 brigade, light cavalry brigade, moving up to 6 days to kind of engage these brigands in Nasiriyah. And in the south, all quiet. Yeah, Zarif Mustafa's not actually activated, and in any case, there is no evidence of any threat yet. We have seen Yemeni forces in Hyderabad and Kala, so I gather they've really moved back into the interior, but Yemeni forces do still exist. We have not destroyed all their forces by any measure, but we've significantly pacified Yemen in the sort of past 6 to 3 months, really. Okay. Past turn. I'll put you on pause, and I'm just going to check the Imperial fleet really quickly before I do that. Where is the Imperial fleet? He asks. Oh, okay, it's in Kataro. It's moving back. That's why. Yeah, that's fine. So the Imperial fleet was used to kind of assist in shelling Kataro. Is a little bit worse for wear, so we're going to send those guys back. Get them to actually, no, we won't. We'll get them to set to an offensive posture on the basis they see anything en route. Let's check the raiding fleet. Raiding fleet's in good shape. Okay, we'll move the small raiding fleet up. The main function of this really is sort of reconnaissance. But we're set to intercept, offensive posture, sustained attack. So if any Austrian ships are kind of spotted, we've seen no kind of same as the Crimean War. It's strange actually. There's been no significant kind of maritime action, and yeah, engaging some Austrian ships would be kind of would be great, but yeah, it's not come to pass. Okay, that's it. I'll put you on pause, past turn, and I'll see you in early January 1857. Okay, welcome back then. 1st of Jan 1857, and let's have a little bit of after action on these moves. So, well, first of all, victory against the rebels in Baghdad. It looks like that force was completely destroyed. The force in Nasiriyah not yet. In fact, no significant. Well, there was a battle in Nasiriyah, Yeah, so we inflicted 768 casualties out of 2,000, and we took 51 casualties. That's fine. So that's a work in progress. It's a smaller force engaging. It's not division size, it's a brigade. So we've reset the cavalry brigade to an offensive posture, and the plan is to clear out the rest of that force. Now, in Europe, it's a bit more complex. We suffered a defeat, but not a significant defeat, not by any stretch of the imagination. So the attempt to cross over to the eastern side of the Danube resulted in a pretty messy battle. It happened on day 4, so this was actually before Omar's force was in theatre to be able to support. I thought that we'd probably, that window was small enough that we'd get away with it. Took 20,000 casualties, inflicted 20,000, and destroyed a number of elements. But we can get a picture of the size of the Austrian force then. Little under 180,000. Fairly significant force, and indeed it is. One Joseph Radetzky, and he is first-rate defensive commander. So yeah, that's the force that's kind of assembled. It's not just kind of one force; it's a kind of combination of the. He would be a theatre commander really for this area, so he would have basically stepped in to provide support for this corps that is based in eastern Hungary. It seems that a lot of the casualties, rather strangely, were actually sustained by the corps that was holding back, that was nevertheless functioning a supporting role. The actual forces that crossed over sustained far fewer casualties, but it was only 20,000. It's a defeat technically, but I don't see that as any kind of game-changing thing. But it gives us a bit of an insight into what the forces they have. This 175,000, look, it's going to include us. This is not just Radetzky's command that he has in Sombor. This is, the accumulated forces also that are inside, if you like, the kind of city of East Budapest, of Pécs. So that's that. Omar successfully crossed over from Zagreb and very, very easily took back the fortress, which is in construction at Slavonia, without any kind of engagement. We engaged the kind of remnants of this garrison force in Zagreb and didn't quite finish it off, but inflicted 10,000 casualties, destroyed 4 of the elements, and I guess what we have left is 4 very understrength elements. Took 6,400 prisoners as well, and that's, again, it's a work in progress. So we'll keep the Selim Pasha's corps, reserve corps, in Zagreb on an offensive posture. He is, of course, supported by Hussein Avni, and Hussein Avni's force is just going to have to sit tight on the defensive for the time being. There are large Austrian forces sitting ominously just over the kind of it's not the Isonzo. I think the Isonzo would be over here, but nevertheless sitting in Istria just outside Trieste, but they don't have a commander. If they had a commander, that would be game changing, but they don't. So these forces are not, they're not as well organized as they otherwise would be. But this is a significant force of about 100,000 men sitting across from Hussein Avni, whose force is sort of split, and who's, the kind of the lion's share of his force, if you like, the kind of guts of his force is in bad shape still. It's missing a number of elements. It's not in good shape. So yeah, that's that. Not a bad round, not game changing, but it's so annoying that happens. But yeah, it is what it is. I've got a bit of a plan for, I think, what we're going to do. So first of all, I think the principal aim, if we're going to take Vienna, is to stop Radetzky's force in the south joining forces with Mitrovitz's force in the north through Hungary. We have to stop that happening, and I think the way to do it is we have to basically take the fight to Radetzky, give him a bloody nose, force his force back into the fortress of Banat, and yeah, do as much damage as we can, and do it quickly, frankly, because obviously central Hungary now is especially vulnerable, not least because Mehmet Vasif's corps took most of the damage in his supporting role really in crossing the Danube. So this is now our weak area, and of course we have Mitrovica and Pressburg, and whatever accumulated forces they have in Vienna. Various forces, got Edward von Clam-Gallas, 18th Army, which is comprised of a corps, a division, mixed forces really, mixed forces. It may not be the worst thing to encourage these forces out into central Hungary. That's my thinking, away from Vienna, across the Danube. So to that end, what I'm going to do is do a bit of a feint. Let's get Mehmed Vasif Pasha's corps, which is damaged in any case, back across the Drava, I think, or the Dava, and get that force to enter the structure and to retreat if engaged. That's the first plan, to essentially open up Budapest, or open up the western part of Budapest. We didn't suffer any significant prestige loss. It may be because whatever loss was not as great as, for example, the gain we had from something else. So structures loss and capture is -3. Well, we captured some structures. We captured a farm and this sort of thing. So I think that's probably, you know, the prestige loss that we would have had. It's very small anyway, but these are agricultural enterprises. So that's the Dalmatian coastline, kind of almost cleared of agricultural enterprises. Let's progress this a little bit further, shall we? So the fisherman port. Two fisherman ports and a cattle farm is going to be torched in Fiume as a part of our operation, you know, let them know what we bring. And a cereal farm in Zagreb. And as we feint our withdrawal from central Hungary, just to make it really look like we're leaving forever and we have no intention of ever returning, we're going to put these farms to the torch. We're going to destroy the manufacturing, well, the manufactory, and the depot. And do we destroy the rail network? Yeah. If they take it back, it links, although it could benefit us sort of long term. Well, not really, because we're not going to control the region. Yeah, we'll destroy the rail network as we leave as well. So that completely scorched Earth's Western Hungary, the flatlands of Western Hungary, as we withdraw. Now we have every intention of returning there, and we will be in force. But the feint is to try and draw south closer to our base of supplies and logistics to get us in a much stronger position, and also creates a little bit of time, trades a little bit of space for a bit of time so we can deal with the right flank. Now, in terms of the right flank, let's keep Abdul Karim. One thing I don't like about this is Abdul Karim Nadir in the reports is... Where is it? What part of the report is it? Yeah, he's congratulated for his actions. So even though he's kind of defeated, you know, he successfully crosses the Danube. He's kind of, you know, he's positioned. He doesn't suffer any kind of catastrophic losses against a superior force in the last analysis. Also, because if you look at the battle report, Omar Pasha is not yet in theatre. He's not able to kind of lend his forces or command. So he's actually outnumbered more than 2 to 1 at the moment of engagement, and he comes off sort of scot-free. So he's congratulated, but herein lies the problem. He now has a new seniority of 1. That puts him at the same seniority as Omar Pasha. I don't like that. I mean, Omar Pasha received his promotion beforehand, so in theatre, in theory, in theatre, he is overall commander. He is commander-in-chief. But I just don't want there to be any kind of disruption, really, to the kind of chain of command. It bothers me, because Abdul Karim Nadir, you know, look, he's a good enough commander, don't get me wrong, but he's not at nearly the same level as Omar Pasha, and we want Omar Pasha to be lending his kind of, you know, skills and sort of excellence to really what we have to do here, which is considerable. It's to defeat, you know, probably the best Austrian commander and one of the great commanders of the era. So I think in order to avoid any kind of confusion or problems, Omar Pasha is set to offensive posture, to all-out attack. He's going to cross the Danube. It's going to take him 4 days. And upon doing that, he's going to cross over into Sombor. It's a 7-day march. He receives support of Abdul Karim Nadir in this case. He is not providing the supporting role. He's engaging. It's a 7-day march. And yeah, let's get this on, sort of thing. He's got a command of 95,000 men at his disposal. It has supplies enough to do the job. and plenty of support detachments, and a reserve army in the form of Abu Karim Nadir. So, that's the plan. For Abu Karim Nadir's part, we're going to get him to clear out, or to continue the process, at least of trying to clear out East Budapest, PEX. That will, of course, again draw Radetzky into a supporting role, but this corps that's in the field looks like it's in pretty ropey shape. It looks like it's on its last legs. It looks like the elements that we destroyed were mostly from that force. Now, Radetzky has a large command. It's easily 80 to 90,000 and no command penalty. So as well as being a good defensive commander, whatever Radetzky's qualities are, it also allows him to have a pretty generous command point kind of budget, if you like. He can command large forces. So yeah. Now, talking of Radetzky, the Italians have retaken Milan back. That is good news. I say talking of Radetzky because, of course, in real life he was very much based in northern Italy. And yeah, this is a noteworthy kind of piece as well. This has affected Austrian national morale, which is down to 88. We're at 85. This is a really good development, and we get a boost of 3 will to fight and national resilience, national morale points. You know, that's really, really good, and obviously reflects the conduct of the war. The war is in our favour, and we're getting a nice bounce in terms of national morale now. But this is a big battle that's coming up. It never happens. Every time I seem to think there's a big battle that's about to happen, it doesn't happen. But I can't see Radetzky going anywhere. He's a good defensive commander, you know, about as good defensively as Omar Pasha is offensively. So it's, I'd say this is a pretty square fight. But if Abu Karim Nadir can clear this area before Omar Pasha passes through, that reduces, because a lot of these forces that are in here, you know, that are under kind of Radetzky's command, if you like, you know, these are support forces. As they can be cleared by Abu Karim Nadir, he secures the east bank of the Danube, and then Omar Pasha pushes through that. That means we should fall on Radetzky with a numerical superiority. That's my thinking as well, if all the pieces kind of fall into place at the right time. So yeah, okay, scorched earth, railroad damage. I'm not sure if we have to keep a force there over a fortnight. I guess we'll soon find out. Destroying that railroad is not a zero-sum thing. I'm just thinking if we could pull it off, as well as, you know, destroying the economy, then all well and good. So that would basically mean that all of the areas, all of the economic areas under our control, will have been destroyed. Austrian economic kind of enterprises, if you like, will have been destroyed. I tell you what, there's a wool farm in Slavonian. Omar Pasha's boys will put that to the torch as he leaves. So yeah, we're beginning to inflict economic damage on the Austrians. So whatever way it goes now, you know, we're not quite at the stage where we're hobbling them yet, but we are clearing this area. And before peace is declared, the last thing we'll do, because of course these still have some utility while we control them, is to destroy the fortresses. Now the really good thing about Vienna is it's not fortified. Of course it would have had an early modern fortress, but it has obviously just gone into disrepair. It doesn't exist anymore, or the city has just outgrown it, you know. So the old kind of fortress that was once, you know, very effective defensive weapon used against us, just hasn't been maintained. I guess there's been no threat to Vienna in many, many years, so it is not a fortified city anymore. So a siege would not be prolonged like Hataro, unless they began fortifying it, which they could do. But that also adds a sense of urgency. Once they begin fortifying it with these forces inside the fort, you know, we're besieging it for a long time, and we have to maintain a large force there. That allows Austrian mobile forces to kind of wheel around and do what they do. So that's it. That's our military kind of moves. Really, we've got the kind of raiding fleet. It was slightly delayed in leaving Smyrna, but that's one day away now from the Northern Adriatic. The main function on this is to provide us with a bit of intelligence, also of kind of forces moving along the coast, and to try and bottle up any kind of Austrian fleet that might be there. We have had some raiding. I'm sure I've had some indications of commerce raiding. No, okay. Let's quickly have a look then at the reason I'm looking at Britain is because it occurred to me that it looks as though British ships. Oh, okay, so these are Venezuelan. Maybe it's Maybe it was British ships engaging Venezuelan merchants or something peculiar like this. I don't know. Okay, so they weren't our ships being raided, but we had intelligence indications. We had during the passing of turn. See, the Americans are industrializing very quickly. No surprise there. But no, they are Austrians. No damage sustained though. So yeah, cruiser division. So yeah, it's a raiding force off of the coast of the United States. Interesting. All right. Let's check the economy really quickly. Now we had set to import a lot of steel, which we have, because we were sitting at a very, very small amount of steel a couple of turns ago. So we've reduced steel imports now, and we still produce just enough steel actually with our kind of craft economy to sustain our economy, to sustain our kind of steel consumption. 78 units of goods on the national market for 224, 63 exported for 159. And obviously 73 imported for 246 because of a big kind of hauling of steel. And yeah, various kind of enterprises dismantled on our orders. Good stuff. Okay, let's check our exports very quickly. Nice round figures. He who does not like round figures does not like life. Good stuff. One thing I'm going to keep an eye on is dyes. I'm noticing that we are exporting more dyes than we're producing. So, not this turn, but next turn we're going to build a dyes quarry. The thing with dyes quarries is dyes is one of those things that you can begin to produce synthetically fairly quickly, but at a cost. Your other commodities are required to produce them. 643. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. Let's begin a dye quarry in Lebanon. Take a bit of time. Leaves us at 289. We've got no big imports set, and our operational cost at 211. That's cutting it quite fine, but we're at 2% inflation, so I feel fairly happy with the risk. Check assets balance. They're good. Trade once more. Fine. Okay, that's the economy set. Got to put you on pause. We've got a pass turn and see how this unfolds then. Omar Pasha versus Joseph Radetzky. Take it away, Omar. Okay, welcome back. Late January then, and yeah, a round of serious big battles. Huge engagements. If we look at our national morale, we gained 5 national morale points from battles this turn. So we're up at 89. Austria is sitting at 84. And the battles weren't in the places where we thought they'd be. In fact, Omar Pasha never even made it to Sombor. It looks like there was an Austrian attempt to push Hungary. Both sides, both banks of the Danube. Successful, of course, in the west because we had nothing there. Khurshid Pasha, or Khurshid Pasha's understudy, Osman, is finished convalescing, and he's going to have to make a hasty escape. So he's going to do just that into Slavonian. So let's have a look at the battles. Bit of after action then. So the first engagement is Abdul Karim's assault on eastern Budapest, PEX, which was successful. Inflicted 15,000 casualties, took 1,700 of his own, took 9,000 prisoners, and destroyed a whole number of elements. Some of them fortress forces, some of them regular forces, some of them specialized forces like marine units. God knows what they have marine units doing this far inland. But yeah, for the most part, well, very successful. Not a short, sharp fight though. It was a real kind of slugging match. And the key thing here is no support from the outside. So very quickly, even on the first day, it looks like Radetzky fell back. I don't know what his game is, but yeah, he's no longer in Sombor, and he was not able to support the fight in eastern Hungary. So he may have taken some serious damage from the first fight, which, even though we lost, we inflicted 20,000 casualties and received about the same number of casualties. So anyway, we'll go through the colonial fight in a moment. So we can see then Omar Pasha is committed against Austria in eastern Hungary, Ostungarn. So there is an additional fight here, and this is the big battle. It looks like Mitrovic attempted to push into eastern Hungary, and you know, an absolute bloodbath. We take 25,000 casualties, inflict just under 50,000, and we take 10,000 prisoners. And yeah, an absolute hell of a slugging match. 150 against 120,000. We've got 786 guns. They got 260. Yeah, hell of a fight that in the snows of early January, East Hungary. But that's definitely one for the history books. 2 rounds of combat. It was a fairly short, sharp fight. And yeah, the Austrians completely outclassed. This time by Abdelkrim Nadir. He was in command of the fight. But he did his business. Credit where credit's due. Omar Pasha was a big part of that fight, but he wasn't in overall command. Interestingly, yeah, the enemy was routed at day 14, taking 58 hits. So absolutely smashed to pieces. That wasn't it. There were still remaining Austrian forces. Now this is under the command of Albrecht von Ostrich. I don't know whether he was a part of Mitrovic's force and he's kind of like slow in falling back, or whether he made his own independent move that just didn't sync properly. That happens. That happened with us attempting to cross the Sava, if you remember, a year ago. We suffered 15,000 casualties, so we didn't get off scot-free there. Take 1,600 prisoners, inflict 25,000 casualties, and destroy one line regiment. A Hungarian one. It actually specifies the ethnicity. That's interesting. A short fight, but yeah, it's only against an army corps, but yeah, I mean, in the win column, and I mean, for that we get a national morale point as well. Yeah, I mean, we destroyed most of that corps, even though we only kind of actually destroyed one line regiment. The casualties suggest that a large part of that force was completely destroyed, and there were actually remnants of garrison force by the looks of it also. So yeah, big fights, and that was not it. The Austrians also attempted to push Zagreb with 50,000 men. They had garrison forces in theatre anyway, and it looks like they pushed through with a corps, and they lost their HQ asset unit. And we took heavy casualties here, 31,000, inflicted 21,000, and we took 3,000 prisoners. Now we can see that the army corps that's in Zagreb is this corps here. This is what's engaged, and you can see it's you know, really badly hit. Now we can see in the rounds of combat, the first hour of combat, that corps is alone against an army corps plus mixed forces and support. That's also the case the second round of combat. By the second hour, this army corps was exhausted. First round of combat, or hang on, okay, third round of combat, same sort of situation. Fourth round of combat, that's when Hussein Avni's force basically arrives in theatre to support, and that's, I guess, when the tide is kind of turned. Yeah, messy fight though, absolutely, really messy fight. But you know, even though we take heavier casualties, we don't lose any. We don't actually lose any kind of regiments. They lose four elements, and you know, an entire HQ army, an army corps HQ service asset unit is destroyed, and they are expensive asset. You know, they're expensive elements to replace. So yeah, messy fight. But we hold Zagreb. We are actually depicted as the attacker here. So I think what happens is that corps is looking to clear the residual forces that are in Zagreb, and I think as that happens, other Austrian forces are kind of moving in at the same time, and then kind of basically bolster that defense. But anyway, victories all around. Really good news. First things first, we need to get Selim's force out of there. It's in really ropey shape. We're going to set to evade combat. We're going to fall back to Slavonian, and we'll enter the fortress. What's the chance of a force march? 50%. Let's do it. And the reserve corps, which is where? Why is it so difficult to click on that? There we go. that's largely reconstructed. That force is going to be moved up into Zagreb. We'll set to a defensive posture and a sustained attack. And that's to a large extent being very quickly reconstructed, so that's good news. Right. Zagreb is besieged. The structure is intact. I don't know how, it's not even a fortress, but anyway. And there's no forces in Zagreb, but okay, whatever. That arrives there before, it takes 8 days either way if the forced march comes off. So we're switching those forces out. We're getting Khurshid Pasha's understudy to fall back to Slavonia. Now, what do we do here? We've got 2 armies, both of which are severely weakened. They've taken, they've been involved in some really, really titanic battles. Well, first of all, Abdulkarim Nadir is not activated this term, so whatever the weather, he's not in a position to do anything. He's a core light because we detached a core. That's the core, that's this core here, which has been reconstructed inside the fortress at Slavonia. The problem with Omar Pasha pushing further south is if Radetzky's here, he offers support, and we're kind of outnumbered. We're kind of strung out. Then we could be caught in a bit of a tricky situation. That said, he's supported by Abdulkarim Nadir, but what forces are here? That looks like that's a division or a brigade or something. Or a garrison force. Westtruppen Zarayon. I don't know what that means. I think given that Radetzky's fallen back, that's good enough for me. We know he's there. We know it's a lingering threat, but we can't chase him around the country. We don't want to fall into the trap of chasing Radetzky into the Carpathians and moving all our forces away from the kind of center of gravity. So yeah, if he wants to pull back, that's fine. That means he has to cross a river again to get back into Sombor. He wants to make a play for Hungary, go ahead. We've got 2 armies here, and they'll both support each other. What we do want to do is resecure the west bank of the Danube, and we're going to do just that, because Omar Pasha is activated. His forces sustain losses, and they're a little bit disorganized. They've been involved in some big actions, but it's a 7-day march. Once he's there, we're going to sit tight, and then we'll keep our forces in that configuration. We'll keep Abdulkarim here for the time being. We want him to recover. He doesn't have any elements to replace, but he does need replacements and this sort of thing. But we don't need any elements completely rebuilt. Yeah, let's get Omar Pasha back, and he's going to be obviously the spearhead that kind of drives on Vienna when the opportunity presents itself. It looks like they're constructing a force, expeditionary battalion, but it does look like they drew some forces out of Vienna, which is what we intended. So Vienna now looks decidedly weak. 20 days. That's not on the cards just yet then. I say we get Omar Pasha here, back into kind of Western Hungary. We settle him here for 2 weeks to a month to get some replacements up, reconstruct his forces, get some reserves into place. Then we move Abdulkarim Nadir also into West Hungary so he can support Omar Pasha's move on Vienna. That's basically what we do, I think. And it's going to be pretty quick. I think if Radetzky wants to be a part of this, then we're going to have to invite him into a fight into central Hungary. If we have an army in Vienna, we can always offer support to Budapest anyway. And we can always move back down. We can even build a fortress in Vienna, try and hold it for a couple of months sort of thing. Play a bit of a long game. But the plan has worked. We can see that in Vienna there are decidedly less forces. Clam Galas. It looks like some of them actually moved from Vienna into Presburg. I think that's why. Okay, that's the plan. Omar moves west. Hussein Abdi stays in place. We switch the 2 army corps from Slavonia and Zagreb. And that's basically it. That's the Western Front dealt with. Yeah. What should have shaped the raiding fleet? We'll leave that there for another fortnight. And let's have a quick check on the Imperial fleet, the main fleet. Okay, we'll leave these boys in Constantinople probably for a month or so actually. They need to restock on supplies, reorganise their forces and get some crew leave happening, I suppose. Okay, Baghdad is clear. Nasiriyah is in the process of being cleared. That's fine. Okay. Our force is spotted, but we're not activated in Yemen. We sit tight for now. I'm hoping that force doesn't attempt to move into Taiz. It'll probably try and move and besiege Sana'a. It is a 16-day march north anyway, so that's it. Nothing to do in Yemen. And yeah, big round though, huge battles. I mean, Christ, I don't know. I have to tally up all the casualties in all these big engagements. 15,000 plus 9,000 prisoners. 50,000 plus 10,000 prisoners. Yeah, I mean, a bad 2 weeks for Austria. I mean, it's clear they're becoming much more aggressive. They're really determined to kind of get us cleared out of central Hungary. They don't like this at all, and they're pressing hard, but it ain't working. But our forces are momentarily vulnerable, and we've come off a string of big victories. So I mean, now if Radetzky wanted to make a play now's his moment really, because it's never going to get any better than it is now for him, as far as I can see. But yeah, another 25,000 there, another 20,000 there. Christ, they must have lost nearly 100,000 casualties in a 2-week period. Unbelievable, and we pretty much, we win every single significant engagement, really. Superb. Right. Yeah, it's still tough weather. It's not snowing anymore, I should say. It was a kind of really early winter. There's a lot of rainfall now, but the snow's kind of stopped really in early January. So it's heavy rainfall. There's still some snow, especially in the mountains, obviously, the Carpathians and such. But yeah, just heavy rainfall now. Just gloomy, bleak winter weather, quagmire and such. So yeah, this is not ideal not ideal weather at all for a kind of a serious fight, but we're pulling it off. Right, let's have a look at the economy. Okay, 83 for 238. Domestic market sales 66 for 162. Exports 23. Imports for 46. Yeah, that's good stuff. And if we have a look at our prestige losses, then prestige losses for structures destroyed 31, but we gained 46 from battles. So I'll take that. So in the eyes of the world, our kind of scorched earth is not quite as bad as I thought it would be. You're up next, Eastern Budapest. So this is not just a conventional war that we're fighting in the same way that the Russians were fighting against us. We are fighting economic warfare here. We are laying waste, absolutely laying waste to their economy as we're doing this. We've cleared out gutted central Hungary, Croatia, the Dalmatian coastline. Everything has been destroyed. Everything has been torched. Factories have been razed. So when it comes to Vienna, they know what to expect. Okay, and we are fine with that. Okay, nothing on the diplomacy front as far as I can see. Now, Italy has Milan back. I guess they're consolidating their position. They also have recaptured Chambéry. So their forces are now released to move maybe on Udine or South Tyrol. But yeah, and I mean the Italians now could be kind of entering the scene from the west, and that's welcome. They don't like us very much, but we're okay with that as well. But yeah, I mean if they can tie up Austrian troops, take some territory, fine. But this is really good that they have Milan. I'm happy with that. We shouldn't scoff too much here. I mean we hobble Austria. It's going to be replaced by Italy. If Italy unites, there'll be a big maritime competitor as well. They'll be our principal competitor in the Mediterranean, so we should remember that. That'll be decades from now, likely, but anyway. Okay, urban population increased. Kars. So Kars is now a stage 3 city. Varna, level 2. Excellent, okay. And we can establish a city in Niš. That is interesting because Niš is a... Yeah, so we've got access to coal in Kosovo. In Kosovo, Petric. So there's quite a lot of domestic access to coal in Niš, Kosovo, and Petric. And also in Bihać. We need to remember that and put that in our pocket. And also we have access to coal in Ankara and Zonderburg. That's not bad, actually. That's not terrible domestic access to coal. It's not the kind of big coal fields that we'd really like, but anyway. Right, okay, good. So population increasing. Nothing on the diplomatic front. We ignored the Austrian request. And we've got 4 diplomats. Okay. We'll propose a state visit to France. Also Prussia. One anxiety I have is that Prussia is going to wade in. Prussia has very good relations with Austria. And yeah, we do not want to be fighting the Prussian army. Absolutely not. So yeah, we want to try and keep them in our, sort of keep on the right side of them for the time being. I mean, they're a kind of distant power, really. They're not really a kind of strategic competitor, but like, nevertheless, also, Prussian armies could very quickly get to Vienna. And yeah, we would be really hard pressed to defeat the Prussian army. It's quite small though at this stage. I mean, it's only 1857, but I'm sure it's no secret to anyone that it's a very good quality army in the mid-19th century. Right, let's get our exports squared away. Yeah, we can see that we're really eating into our kind of our dye reserves. We're really working through dyes now. Okay. That's all good stuff. Economy looks set. One thing I'm going to check is coal is gradually dwindling. So we're not exporting quite enough coal. So 84, 86. So that's we only need 2. Let's import another 5 units. And we'll import from northern Germany because we have really good access to northern coal in northern Germany. Japan also. It's curious. Okay, that'll do. I suppose it's because Japan has no industrial base to actually soak up any of the coal that it manages to produce. Well, not much of one anyway, not yet. Right, that's it. Yeah, everything looks decent there. So we're going to pass the turn. And yeah, I think that we're going to start laying the groundwork now. Late January. We've beaten off a really significant Austrian attempt to retake central Hungary. So I think now we're going to kind of entrench ourselves into central Hungary and begin to prepare. It kind of worked. Pulling back from the west did draw forces in, although it looks like a large part of the Austrian force actually tried to make a move into west. Yeah, into rather East Hungary. But they've suffered really, really big defeat. But they still have significant forces here. So, yeah. Omar Pasha is moving back to the west to resecure the west bank of the Danube, and we're going to sit tight there, build his force up, get some replacements, get some supplies up, and then make our play for Vienna. I think that's how it's going to have to be. Okay, I'm going to hit pause. We're going to, and yeah, I'll see you in what are we, late Jan now, early Feb. So see you on the other side. Right, so early Feb. No big land battles. We're well and truly comfortable now in central Hungary. We have Budapest controlled and the surrounding areas controlled. We've got Omar Pasha now a stone's throw from Vienna. Abdülkerim Nadir in the east. Zagreb is secured, and Hussein Avni is kind of screening this large force sitting in Istria. Presumably this is a large part of what kind of came out of northern Italy, I don't know. During the passing of turn, we could see a lot of railroad activity, so the Austrians, this might be the first war in history where this has happened, are using the railroads to strategically redeploy forces. Now their railroad access is limited, they can't draw anything from sort of Tyrol or anything like that, but I guess from sort of their Czech provinces, possibly even from the east, partially anyway, and they've now assembled a significant force. This is a mixed force of units that have been defeated, but it's fairly significant, and it's under the command of Karl Ferdinand. Now that is sitting at Presburg. We've got mixed forces still in Vienna itself, mixed brigades. Clam Gallas, his corps remains there also. But that's it. As for Radetzky in the east, where is he? You know, we're screening with Abdülkerim Nadir. We're a bit vulnerable down here in Slavonian, but we've got the reserve corps under Salim Pasha reconstituting inside the citadel. And yeah, Khurshid Pasha's understudy Osman also there. Let's get him up. Actually, let's have a look at what forces we have here. No, let's get him to move up and take command of one of the army corps inside Abdülkerim Nadir's force. It's going to take him 2 days, because we've got a couple of army corps there that don't have any kind of integrated commanders, so having a good aggressive commander there would pay dividends. Now, in terms of the battles, I just mentioned no maritime engagements, and as someone that really fancies himself a kind of grand strategy computer gaming admiral, this was a pleasure to see a big naval victory over the Austrians in the Gulf of Venice. It looked like a pretty half-hearted move on their part, but yeah, a flotilla of wooden screw corvettes engages 8 frigates plus 4 smaller lighter corvettes, and we outnumber them, but it's an absolute resounding victory. We send them all to the bottom. Good to see. I mean, we had force superiority there, but that's yeah, that's nice to see. Not a big naval battle, but good enough. And I think that'll do for the raiding fleet. We'll move these boys back to Smyrna for the time being. It's a 12-day journey and a well-earned rest, and we'll keep the Imperial fleet in Constantinople reorganizing, and we'll send the Imperial fleet to sit outside, or sit in the Gulf of Venice to sort of switch places. The main concern is now that they're aware that we have a force here, and they're aware of its composition, that might sort of inform them to vector a larger forces. I mean, the Austrian navy is not large. One thing I'd like to do, but this is less pressing than really taking Vienna, is if we could take Istria as well. This is a secondary objective. If we could take Trieste and destroy their shipbuilding plant, their fortress there and their depot, the shipbuilding plant is the main thing that really kind of stops them becoming a serious maritime power, at least for a good 5 to 10 years, I'd say. Because with a shipbuilding plant there, they're certainly in a position to build heavy ships, especially if they enlarge the. It's only a very limited port, size 5 port, but if they enlarge that, they could build very serious ships, especially once we start getting into the kind of cladding of warships and such. So Nasiriyah is in the bag, actually, wrapped up. That's dealt with, and that's good to see. Nice counter-insurgency operation there. Happy with that. 100% control of the region. We'll move the Q8 brigade back. And yeah, with Gulf of Venice, we've seen Nasiriyah actually happened over 2 engagements, we can see, but it was yeah, it's dealt with. Bit of mopping up by Omar Pasha then as he moves into kind of Western Hungary, deals with remnants of kind of garrison forces that linger in the region. They're not too pressing. We're going to stay on the defensive. For the time being, we're going to stay on the defensive here now. Consolidate our forces. We need to get some supply up, an additional commander, and we need replacements until we need to reconstitute our forces. Abdülkerim Nadir's supply looks a little bit kind of not what I'd like to see. So we're going to move a supply train up. Okay, yeah. How long is it going to take? 23 days, showing that. 30% chance. Okay, we'll set to passive posture, and yeah, so that's fine. And we'll take out two of the supply trains, and we'll move them to Sarajevo. We will force march that. Good stuff. And if we look at our supply situation, we can now see that early work of building depots, of enlarging the depots and getting kind of nice fortified centre is really paying off. We can see that we've got a logistic centre now, and that this kind of logistic kind of core is servicing these units. It's this that allows us to do this. You know, without having done this early work, this kind of groundwork, none of this would be possible. There's no way we could, you know, we could have forces in Hungary and we could utilise the fact that we're seizing kind of supplies for a period of time, but we wouldn't be able to maintain sustained operations here without what we've done early on in the war. So it's really paid off. But we're going to leave it there, and one of the reasons we're going to leave it there is because of another development, and that is, oh wow, that's very good. We've mastered Le Bon Marche department stores that will increase domestic demand. Excellent. Is because we have received another peace proposal from Austria. Second crack at the whip, second chance out before I take the dive. War reparations 136 over 2 years. That's slightly less and over a longer period of time. I don't know what informs that decision. Maybe they just have less money now. Maybe they've sort of sat down with a calculator of sorts and determined that their first offer wasn't good enough. But I don't know why they think we accept that. Not least because we control slightly more. Although they sent that last turn, of course, when we didn't control the west bank of the Danube. So perhaps they calculated that our falling back, despite the colossal defeats that they've experienced, our falling back from Western Hungary indicated that we were in trouble or something. Or that the mere appearance of Radetzky in the east would frighten us into accepting something. But I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to rejoin in early February, and gives us time to have a bit of a think about whether or not we take the second offer, whether we sit tight, give it 2 weeks to a month, and then make a move on Vienna, which I think is the next kind of thing on the agenda, really. So, yeah, I'll leave it there. Early Feb. We'll join back in early February. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.